I'm starting. Okay. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening for Professor Markus Schrenk because in Germany it's 8 p.m., isn't it? I'm Thiago Andrade. I'm a PhD student at Federal University of Pernambuco and the SBFA member. So, first of all, I would like to thank you, the Professor Schrenk, for accepting to do this SBFA conference cycle, and Professor Marcos Silva for the debate on it. The SBFA conference cycle is a monthly activity of the Brazilian Society of Analytical Philosophy, in which dynamic members of the analytical community invite influential research to talk about their research, broadcast live to SBFA's YouTube. The cycle aims to bring together our community around discussions and research in the area of analytical philosophy. Markus Schrenk is a professor of philosophy at Düsseldorf University and the president of the German Society of Analytical Philosophy. He is author of the book Metaphysics of Science, a systematic and historical introduction. The title of his conference is Proprioceiving Art. So, before Professor Schrenk start his talk, Professor Marco Silva, Bruno, do you want to say something?
Maybe you want to start, Marcus. I'm not sure. I'm talking about Marcos Silva.
Yes,
Or
you could.
Just say hello. Vou começar em português. Poxa, muito bacana. Obrigado, Thiago. Obrigado, Bruno, pela essa iniciativa de juntar a sociedade brasileira, filosofia analítica, a sociedade alemã de filosofia analítica. Os presidentes também se chamam Marcos, né? Coincidência. Bruno é aqui da casa também, da UFPE, e está perdido aí no mundo, né, Bruno? Várias capitais europeias, e o Thiago também faz no nosso programa de doutorado. É bacana essa iniciativa da professora Beatriz Sorrentino, desse ciclo de palestras. Acho que foi uma grande iniciativa nesses últimos 2 anos. E convidar todo mundo para o Olinda 2024, que, na verdade, daqui a 2 semanas, menos de 2 semanas. Todo mundo bem-vindo. So, in English now, just to say hello to Bruno and Thiago and Professor Marcos, to say a big thank you for Bruno and Thiago. Bruno is a former student of ours in Pernambuco as well, and Thiago is a PhD student in our group in Recife. So it's a very nice opportunity to have this collaboration, a new collaboration, a first step for a collaboration between the Brazilian Society for Analytical Philosophy and the German Society for Analytical Philosophy, which is represented here by Professor Markus Schrenk. So thank you, Bruno and Thiago, for the idea and to put this to realize that we have a bridge there that we can use it. And thank you, Professor Beatriz Sorrentino, who is on the backstage now, organizing everything. It's a great work, great effort as well. So thank you to be here. And hope people welcome to Olinda, the 2024. In 10 years from now, we're going to be there, everybody enjoying Olinda and analytical philosophy together. Thank you.
And thank you, Marcus. I would just like to thank Markus Schrenk for accepting the proposition, and thank you for all the support you gave me already, and you are still giving. I would like also to thank the SBFA for this opportunity, and especially Thiago Andrade, that came up with the idea. He was actually the developer of this encounter between societies. So that's it. I will then pass my words to Thiago Andrade so he can follow up with the conference. Thank you. Okay, maybe I'll just pass the word then to Markus Schrenk, please.
All right, many thanks for the opportunity to speak at our sister society, at the Society for Analytic Philosophy in Brazil. That's a great honor, and I'm really happy that we get into touch and that I have the opportunity to give a talk here. We have together decided that it would be best to talk about a project I have, namely proprioceptive art. I have called this talk Proprioceiving art, and behind this proprioceiving is of course a whole theory which is not transparent right now from the beginning, but I'll get there. However, before I get there, I start with a paradigm example of what we would call visual art rather than proprioceptive art. Namely, take Mona Lisa, for example, in the Louvre in Paris. That is a painting, and paintings or photos, etc., we would categorize, if we had to categorize it, under visual art. You will want to see it. You don't want to hear Mona Lisa, but you want to see it. So this is a paradigm example of a visual artwork. Similar with auditory art. Music is, of course, an example for auditory art, and I brought with me, maybe audible right now, that was A Love Supreme by John Coltrane. And here it's the other way around. You don't have to see the quartet, John Coltrane's quartet, you don't have to see them playing his composition. It is enough to listen to it, and maybe even with your eyes closed, it's even a greater experience to listen to that auditory work of art. Now, there are, of course, intermediate cases, and I brought with me a picture of an opera by Philip Glass. This is Einstein on the Beach in a production by Robert Wilson. And for opera, you need both. It's essential for an opera that you have a visual image on stage, but also, of course, the music. Now, you can appreciate opera in just listening to it, but one would still say you would be missing an essential part of the whole thing, of the whole artwork. But it's an intermediate thing. You have visual parts and you have auditory parts. Now, some paintings induce what I'm going to call bodily sensations. By visually looking at something, it induces some other bodily sensations. Take a look at Bridget Riley's picture Fall. And it might be a picture of a waterfall, if you wish. The title might refer to that. And by looking at it, you might get dizzy, or it might induce vertigo. And by vertigo, you would have this dizziness feeling, which is a more bodily feeling than just a visual feeling. We also know that from music. Music is often not only for listening with your ears, especially if you go to a club. These loudspeakers are from Berlin's most famous club, Berghain, and the big bass loudspeakers down there. These play sounds with a frequency which you can't hear. They really hit your body full on. So it's a bodily experience in listening to, let's say, modern electronic music at a club. So you have also there an overlap between listening and some bodily sensations. Oh yeah, here's a soundtrack. Okay, I don't know whether it's transmitted also to the audience. Never mind. That was, if you could hear it, that was Pylon by the band Lacquer. Anyway, so we have clear cases of visual art. We have clear cases of auditory art. We have intermediate cases of the two. But this is not my business. I don't want to look at vision and audition, or for that matter, the other Aristotelian senses. So also not at smelling or tasting or touching. I want to look at something else, namely proprioception, or generally the bodily senses and the arts. Now, what are the bodily senses? I have here a quote by David Armstrong, who characterizes it fairly well. Let me read it to you. By bodily sense, we perceive that our legs are moving, that our head is turned, that our arm is behind our back, that we are keeping our balance, that our body temperature is up, our ears are cold, our stomach distended, our gut full, our throat dry, our heart beating, our muscles tensed or relaxed, and so on and so on. And it's important, and all the other things that we discover about the current state of our body without recourse to the Aristotelian senses, like sight, hearing, taste, smell, or touch. So that your legs are moving, or maybe right now parallel or crossed while sitting, that you don't have to see. You feel it from the inside by your bodily senses, by what I'll later call proprioception. And these are the senses that I have in mind when I talk about art now. So you might think, are bodily senses in the art world at all? Why and how and where? And give me an example. Give me an example for that. So here's an example. Here are many examples, fairly recent ones. So this is one from 21, only 3 years ago, at MoMA in New York by Amanda Williams, called Embodied Sensations. So it's in the title, yeah. And Amanda Williams writes on the MoMA website, Embodied Sensations creates a shared understanding of what experiences are like through shared sensations or embodied experiences. So while the audience is walking through these furniture pieces you see here at the front, and are asked to move around, you can see how people are twisting and moving. They are asked to focus on the embodied experience as well. It's essential for that kind of artwork. Here's another one, or many other ones, by Carsten Höller. Carsten Höller builds slides into museum spaces. This is the Turbine Hall in Tate Modern. And the slides are not just there to be seen from the outside, but in order to experience that artwork fully, you have to slide down these slides by yourself. Because, here's what Höller writes about his artwork called Test Site. The test site isn't just in the Turbine Hall, but it is also, to an extent, in the slider, in you, who is stimulated by the slides, a site within. So your body becomes part of the artwork, and you perceive your body from the inside. And what you perceive there is part of perceiving the artwork. Here, more or less literally said by Carsten Höller. And we could go on from the 2000s onwards. A fairly recent example is also Till Bödeker's Thinking Outside the Box. This is a senses deprivation tank, which has been used by psychologists, also by torturers, by the way. I bracket that. So what is with this? What's going on with this tank is inside this tank is salty water. Super saturated salty water, so that you float. Really, you don't have to move around. You float on this water. It's like in the Dead Sea, floating on it. It's warm to 37 degrees, so that you don't feel the difference between the water and yourself, your own body temperature. And it's of course quiet and dark inside this tank. So what happens here is that you're thrown back onto yourself. You don't have outer senses anymore. You don't hear anything. You don't see anything. You don't even feel your body, because it's floating. It's floating within this tank. So the only sense experience you get are the sense experience from within your body, like described by Armstrong. So that's what this tank does. And I could go on with examples, even early examples, like some artworks by Marina Abramovic. But I won't go into that. We can discuss things later. Now, my question is, since this seems to be something that is en vogue in art museums right now in the 2000s, 2010s, and so on, I have other examples later. My question is, okay, something proprioceptive, something where our body experience gets into focus is more and more important, is a trend in artworks. So my question is, what is that kind of art? How can we define it? I want to extract that concept of a bodily art. So here's the overall agenda for the rest of the talk. I need, of course, to specify what sense this proprioception is. I want to focus a bit further on that. Then that's my main aim, to explicate what proprioceptive art is. And there are sub tasks here. I will say something about our concept of art in general and also touch upon some ontological questions. I try to keep that brief here because I have a different interest, but I'll talk about those questions as well. And then there are some open questions and some observations where I'd be very grateful, especially for 2 or 3 open questions, if you could give me some feedback. That would be great. Okay, I'll start with what I mean by proprioception. I called this how to proprioceive art, or what is proprioceptive art. Now, let me first focus on proprioception, what that is. I use it as an umbrella term here. Well, literally, it comes from Latin, proprius, one's own, and recipere, to receive. So it's to receive one's own, right, from the inside, so to speak. And I use this term, proprioception, for the following 3 ways to perceive oneself from the inside. Proprioception, narrowly speaking, interoception, and the vestibular system. And I come to these points in detail now. There's a narrow way how to conceive of proprioception, and I talk first about the narrow way. I will later on subsume everything here, proprioception, interoception, and the vestibular system, under the term proprioception. Why do I do that? That's a strange move, okay, to call the supercategory after one of the subcategories. Why do I do that? Well, because the term prop art is so nice. Or proprioceptive art is nicer than interoceptive art or vestibular art. So it's an aesthetic choice to say, let us call it prop art. It sounds like pop art, or like op art, or like agitprop, etc. So it makes aesthetic sense to call it prop art or proprioceptive art. Okay, here's what proprioception is, narrowly speaking. The position of our limbs. So you know where your arms are right now. You don't have to look at them. You need not your eyesight of your arms. You close your eyes and you know where your arms are, whether they are in front of you or whether they're behind you or above your head, etc. You know that from inside. So that's because you have nerve endings. You have your muscles are equipped with nerve endings, your joints, etc. And they detect the position of your limbs from the inside and give that information to your brain, if you so wish. Your posture, so not only your limbs, arms and legs, but also whether you sit upright, whether you are tilted, etc. So that posture, whole body posture, is revealed to you by an inner sensory apparatus, nerve endings, etc. Also, your body's spatio-structural extension. You know when you grow muscles, for example, then you have to adapt maybe, but you know that you have a bigger biceps now, whatever you train, or if you gain weight or lose weight, you'll feel that from the inside that happened. Also muscle tension. So if you do some yoga postures, for example, your muscles will be stretched and you notice that they are stretched. Muscle tension is a typical way of proprioceiving your body. And behind all that is also, of course, a body image or schema you have. You know the extension of your body by and large. And because of this background information, you then know where your arms are, where your body is, etc. Because of that background information you have stored somewhere about your body. Okay, so what is interoception in contrast to proprioception, narrowly speaking? Well, with interoception, psychologists mean pains in your body, itches, thermal sensations, sensations of orgasms, etc. So when you're warm, one part of your body is warm, maybe because some heat wave or so hits your arm. You have a thermal sensation within your body, and you can detect that pain as well, especially of your organs, right? So your respiratory, gastrointestinal, or cardiovascular organs, you will feel that. You will get information about them from the inside. You know when you're breathing heavily. You know when you have run a sprint or up the stairs quickly. Then you notice your heartbeat. You have information about that. Gastrointestinal, you know when you're hungry or you know when your stomach is filled from the inside. Also awareness of your energy and stress level, heartbeat, just shortness of breath, indigestion, etc. So these are typical interoceptions. Now, lastly, the vestibular system, which is located in your inner ear. What does it do? It gives you a sense of equilibrium. For this body posture, also related to proprioception, because of some muscle twist now or some strained muscle, I feel that I'm twisted, but also because of the vestibular system, I notice that my head is not upright, but is diagonal. Because I detect with it gravitation, I detect the center of gravity, so to speak. So in this sense, it's quite astonishing. The sense of equilibrium, the vestibular system, is like your eyes, something that detects something external, namely gravitation. Your eyes detect electromagnetic waves. Your vestibular system detects gravity, something outside, right? Okay, spatial orientation, I've just said that. Also movements, whether you accelerate or whether you're stopping, this is detected by your inner ear as well. So related to your body movements heavily. And by all this I mean by bodily senses or by proprioception now in a larger, wider way. Yeah? Proprioception is all that. Proprioception, narrowly speaking, interoception, and the vestibular system. Now, as you realize, there's no single sense organ for these bodily senses. There are multiple sensors. That's a big difference to vision or audition. For vision, we have but one sense organ, namely our eyes. For audition, it's the ear. For the bodily senses, there are very different nerve endings. Very thermal receptors are different than pain receptors, are different from muscle strain receptors, etc. So it's a mixed bag, and they are all only kept together because all this group of senses informs you about a very special physical object in the world, your body, your own body, from the inside, and not seen as a third person or a third body, third object, but seen from inside. That's what I say here on this slide. Again, that is a multitude of detector mechanisms inside the body, and they are sensitive to a different range of physical properties: inertial motion, heat, pressure, change in tissue structure, etc. So it's a mixed bag, but there are these detector mechanisms. And they all come with a special phenomenology. I mean, having a pain is different from maybe it's on a spectrum, but it's different from feeling pressure. It's different from muscle tension, which can lead to pain, of course. But you notice the phenomenology, or feeling stuffed, having eaten a lot feels different from being breathless or so. So specific phenomenology is accompanied here. Okay, the unifying aspect with all these differences is your own. It's about your own body, a very special physical object. Okay. Now that was the first point. What do I mean by proprioception? We can take that. That was our first issue. Now we explicate what proprioceptive art is. Okay. What would an artwork be that is proprioceived in the wide sense? That's my task now. Let's have a finger exercise. What is a visual artwork? How would we intuitively say, define, explicate what it would mean for an artwork to be a visual artwork? Well, look at Mona Lisa. And suppose you go blindfolded into the Louvre. Now, no one of us would say, well, I've seen the Mona Lisa. No, you have, or I've appreciated Mona Lisa. Well, in which sense? You haven't. No, sorry. It's essential to appreciate Mona Lisa, to see Mona Lisa. Of course, you can think about the painting, you can write about the painting, etc. But for an appreciation of the artwork, a proper appreciation of the artwork, you have to see it. If you don't see it, you haven't appreciated it. So that, as a definition for a visual artwork, tentative explication would be this: a work of art is a visual artwork if and only if seeing this work of art is essential for its proper appreciation. Likewise, with an auditory artwork, if we were to define that, we'd say a work of art is an auditory artwork if and only if hearing this work of art is essential for its proper appreciation. Note that I'm not defining what an artwork is here. I just say a work of art is an auditory artwork if and only if. Okay. And so we could, as a first tentative explication, say for prop art, proprioceptive art, exactly the same. A work of art is a proprioceptive artwork if and only if proprioceiving this work of art is essential for its proper appreciation. And I mean, this is the core message, okay? That's it. So here's the core message. But things get complicated. And here's the complicated explication of what prop art is. And what you will see is a mouthful. It's far too much, even for me to understand in one go. So I have little indices, and we go at a couple of concepts, and we go through it bit by bit. So here's the whole thing. I'll read through it. Never mind if we don't understand it, me neither. We go through it bit by bit. Something X is a realization of a proprioceptive artwork if and only if X is a performance, an artifact, etc., or a combination thereof, which, first, appeals essentially, directly or indirectly, to some degree, to its recipient's bodily senses. And second, which qualifies by some preferred art theory as a realization of a work of art. Okay, so as I said, that's complicated, and let us go bit by bit. So let me see. Here's the first footnote, which qualifies by some preferred art theory as an artwork. So index 1, let's have a look at that. What does that mean, this red phrase? Well, what I mean is this, and here is the second point. We need to say something about our concept of art in general if we want to speak about proprioceptive art. So here it is. We can simply look at different theories that have been proposed for an explication of what art is. We could look at institutionalism, we could look at resemblance to historical prototypes, theory, we could look at family resemblance theories or views about artworks, etc. As I said, I don't want to get deep into these theories, but what I want to say is you can plug in your preferred art theory here. Yeah, I don't mind. Just tell me via your theory what items you think are works of art, and I make it my business to tell you whether they are proprioceptive works of art. So I never mind whether you subscribe to institutionalism or to some family resemblance view or whatever. I don't mind. Just give me your theory, then we can agree on whether something is an artwork. And secondarily, and that's my business, I tell you then whether it's a proprioceptive artwork. Now, for the sake of the argument, let me outsource the problem as written on this slide, but as a working hypothesis, just take institutionalism. Institutionalism as the theory of art which says this: a work of art is an artifact, performance, etc., upon which some society or some subgroup of society, curators, galleries, museums, art critics, etc., have conferred the status of candidate for appreciation. That I've taken from Dickey. Danto is similar. So that is a theory of what an artwork is. Now we can criticize that and go into details, of course, yeah, and you might have a different preferred art theory. Institutionalism is the one I put forward as a working hypothesis. Now, so if that's my working hypothesis, then we need to ask, okay, so are there objects, performances, etc., of which some subgroup of society, curators, museums, etc., have conferred the status of an object of appreciation? Does that occur? And I had already examples. Here are further examples. One is in Düsseldorf, has been in Düsseldorf. Unfortunately, they have put it down this early this year in January. That was a net which was built just underneath this glass roof in the K21 museum in Düsseldorf. And this ceiling here, this glass iron structure, is similar to the pyramids in front of the Louvre. So back at the Louvre, you might know these pyramids built in front of the Louvre. This glass structure on the roof of the K21 is similar. And it is a roof for a courtyard 25 meters below. And what Saraceno did is he built this kind of safety net just underneath the roof, and the museum goers were invited to walk on this safety net with 25 meters, looking 25 meters down. So that was a very exciting experience. Frightful experience, especially if you have vertigo, or with vertigo you wouldn't go on this. With heavy vertigo you wouldn't go on this net. And what happens there is, latest when the other museums goers move around in this net, everything is going to move around. So you have a hard time to keep upright, to keep your balance, and not to topple over. So you need your body under control for the whole time. Also, you will realize that you are at least most people are going to sweat. Their heartbeat rises. Their breathing will be heavier, because this is all extremely exciting, to say the least, frightening also. And Saraceno writes also on the website that that's what the artwork is about, that you feel that. So it's no use just watching other people in the net. That's not the point of the net. The point of the net is that you go inside and you have these feelings, these bodily sensations. By the way, I give this class also as a student's class. These are students of mine, which I always took term by term into this net, which is not possible anymore, unfortunately. Okay. Or here is The White Bouncy Castle by Dana Kasperson, William Forsythe, and Joel Ryan at a museum in Hamburg. It's a bouncy castle, right? Okay, but they put it into museum space with the goal that adults, not children, that adults start to jump around in order to feel their body, what's happening to their body when they do that. The acceleration when jumping or falling down, or if you dare it, performing a salto mortale, etc. So that was the purpose of that piece. What I wanted to say with these two more examples is that, yes, it is in the institutions, it is in the museums, it has been taken by curators into the museums as an object of appreciation. So it fits institutionalism. By institutionalism, these objects are at least art. Now it's our business to see whether they are prop art. Okay, so back to here, we tick B, which qualifies by some preferred, sorry, can you see the mouse now? Here, by some preferred art theory as a realization of a work of art. Yes, okay, some do, we have that now. But now we need to look at this here, or let's look at realization. Why did I say realization? Well, let me see. How are we doing with time? Well, I put in this ontological question. We are here on the overall program. I put in the ontological question, which is the following. There seem to be works of art like paintings, sculptures, etc., that seem to belong to the realm of spatio-temporal material things. Okay, if intuitively, if asked, where is the Mona Lisa, and you mean the artwork, you mean the thing itself, the artwork, you would say, well, go to Louvre in Paris. It's there. It's that material object which is in the Louvre. Everything else is forged, is just a copy. The artwork Mona Lisa is in the Louvre. You would say probably say things like that. You could have a very different theory of, but that might be the intuition. That's different with performance art, also with literature and music. Here you will have performances of the artwork. And when asked, but where's the artwork? Okay, I've seen a performance of Philip Glass's opera Einstein on the Beach, but where's the artwork? I've seen a performance of it. Where's it? And then some people say, okay, it's an abstract entity. The artwork is an abstract entity in the Platonic realm, for example. Only the performances of it are in the concrete world. So you get these ontological questions started, and the question will be for prop art, where is it? Then there are all sorts of answers, dualisms, which say, well, for performance art it's abstract. For paintings, it's concrete, or you have some monisms, it's always concrete, or you have abstract monism, it's always abstract. So you have different answers, pluralisms as well. And again, for the sake of the argument, I have to say, these are slides of what I used to think. I used to think, let's take abstract monism as an idea. All artworks are abstract. Mona Lisa is just the very first and original performance, so to speak, or realization of the artwork. It can be realized a couple of times. The second and third, etc., realization we'd call a copy of the original, but the original is not the artwork. The original is just the very first realization of the artwork. And the artwork is something abstract. So even for these intuitively material artworks, even they are abstract. And I used to think that about prop art because it's so varied in. It has sometimes performance aspects. It sometimes has material aspects. I'd go for pluralism nowadays, but never mind. It can be outsourced as well. This ontological question. So what is helpful if we think that the artwork is an abstract entity? the artist has maybe created. Then we can also speak about the intended realization conditions of the artwork. And we could say that the artist might want the realization to be such that we, as audience, move around with our bodies. So that could be an advantage. I realize that I kept this very vague, so let me go on. It's not so important for today's, at least what I would like to discuss with you. Let us skip the ontological question. Let us just talk about the artwork / the realization of the artwork, and never mind too much. Let us not worry too much about it. But rather look at the crucial bits, which is we need that something is a proprioceptive artwork if and only if it appeals essentially, directly or indirectly, to some degrees, to its recipient's bodily senses. I want to get across what I mean by that. So let us start with essentially. What do I mean by essentially? Well, by essentially, I basically mean what I had in this short version of it, the tentative definition of what a proprioceptive artwork is, namely that it is essential for the proper appreciation of it that you proprioceive it, that some inner bodily sensations are there and appreciated. That's behind the essential. To spell it out, it belongs to the adequate realization or reception of the artwork that it affects the recipient's bodily senses. That's crucial. Or in other words, if we were to take away the according bodily sensations, we would not perceive a crucial part of the artwork or the realization of the artwork. Let's take Höller's slides or Saraceno's net. Yes, you can just look at it, but only looking at it is similar to only listening to an opera. You would just have half of the opera because it's essential. Or a music video. A music video, but you have just listened to the music? Well, then you haven't appreciated the music video. The opera, you have just looked at it, not listened to it. Well, then you have just appreciated half of it. So you missed half of the artwork. Same with a proprioceptive artwork. If you just look at it, just look at the slides, just look at the mat, you haven't properly perceived a crucial part of the work. So that's what I mean by essential. The bodily sensations are essential for its appreciation. Now you might ask at this point, who's the authority when it comes to which kind of reception is adequate? Who are you to tell me how I should appreciate Saraceno's net or this opera? Let me do whatever I want with that artwork. Sure. Of course you can. But what I would say is this. I adopt here again something by Reicher and Curry, who also thought of abstract monism. I would say as a working hypothesis, in order to categorize artworks, I need to look at what the artist's intention was, author intentionalism. So if Saraceno says, well, look, I built this net for you to go in because I want you to have these proprioceptions, well, sure, you can still do whatever you want with it. You can also not even visit the museum. That's an option too. But yeah, that's not the in a way the author intended, at least, reaction towards this artwork. So I'd put forward author intentionalism. Alternatives would be to say, let the recipients decide, but then we all do our individual thing and no categorization is possible. Maybe you appreciate Mona Lisa because it's so great to listen to what is going on in the surroundings in that Louvre room with all the other museum visitors. Yeah, you can do that, but that's not an appreciation of Mona Lisa. or let the art critics decide. These are all options, of course, on the table, but I find author intentionalism most appropriate here. Now, there is a way to proprioceive things directly and indirectly. To give two examples, the net or the slides, there you can have direct proprioceptions if you slide down or you walk into the net. You have immediately these bodily sensations, unmediated by anything else. You can go in blindfolded, you can go into the net with noise cancelling earphones, etc. You immediately straight away feel the balancing act or sliding down the slides, this feeling of falling. You have it straight away. It's a direct proprioception. You can have proprioceptions indirectly. We had this with Bridget Riley's picture Fall, where some of us might get vertigo and then have this sensation of not being in equilibrium anymore. But that is mediated by your visual sense. You need first to look at it, have a visual impulse on which you react by a bodily sense. So that would be an indirect proprioception. Now, does that count? Well, yes, it does count if the author intended that you have these mediated proprioceptions, if they are essential to the proper appreciation of the work of art. Then indirect counts as well. So I believe that art can be both directly and indirectly proprioceived, more or less also. So other than the attribute essential, the parameters directly, indirectly come up on a spectrum. Yeah. But when adequately engaging with Holler's slides, that is by sliding down the slides oneself, we directly proprioceive and interoceive. Our vestibular system senses that we are falling, etc. Riley's op art paintings, on the other hand, will induce proprioceptions only indirectly, mediated by vision. And I skipped this for a while. Here's a new piece by Sasha Waltz, choreographer of ballet and modern dance. And she asks the audience to mirror the movements of the dancers on stage while in the audience in order to feel the movements inside. So even there, it's going on. Or Spiegelneuronen, that's the title she gave to her piece. It's also when you're just watching people on stage, your mirror neurons in your brain might start to fire and have an offline simulation of what the dancers do on stage. That would also be an indirect way. If you do the movements yourself, as the audience here in this picture, you directly proprioceive. If you just watch, but your brain, so to speak, stimulates, for example, this arm movement there, then if your brain just stimulates, then it's an indirect, mediated by vision, an indirect proprioception. Okay, but in order for the artwork to be prop art, indirect is okay, but in order for the artwork to be prop art, it must belong to the adequate realization or the reception of the artwork that it affects directly or indirectly the bodily senses. So it's important for the artwork. Okay, skip this. And we have noticed by now these things come in degrees. For Riley's Fall, that the indirect proprioception might be a minor aspect, but essential, but minor. And for the slides or the senses deprivation tank or that bodily sensations by Amanda Williams exhibition, there it's to a high degree proprioceptive. So I have this degree in. So to some degree, very much, predominantly, maybe even only proprioceptive. This is all on a spectrum, and that is a possibility. Okay, as long as it's essential, even if it's just to some degree, but it's essential to it, then it's a proprioceptive artwork. Okay, I've said that. I skipped that quickly. and come to a summary now. So I said, here is a short version again. Something X is a realization, or is a proprioceptive artwork itself, if you so wish, if and only if X is a performance, an artifact, etc., or a combination thereof, which appeals essentially to its recipient's bodily senses, in the sense of take away the proprioceptions and you don't perceive half of the artwork, and which qualifies as a work of art that has to be taken for granted, so to speak, up front, or as a module which you can plug in with your favorite theory of art. Okay, and this essential appeal to the proprioceptive senses can be more or less direct or indirect, and it can come in degrees. Fair enough. Okay. Now, here are some observations now. Description versus evaluation. Let me say this briefly without going through the slide. In declaring that something is an artwork without proprioception, just an artwork, this is purely descriptive. Well, in art theory or aesthetics, it's often taken as being purely descriptive, just sorting things into those things that are artworks and those things that are not. As I could, in my room here, sort things into furniture pieces and, if you so wish, artworks. I could sort things into these categories without evaluation. There might be bad furnitures. They are not, but there could be bad furniture in this room. There could be bad artworks. There could be good artworks, good furniture, etc. It's not an evaluation. Same with saying that some artwork is a proprioceptive artwork. It might be very bad art, very bad proprioceptive art. I come to that later, what that might be. But there could also be very good proprioceptive art. But in saying that it is proprioceptive art, I haven't said anything about its quality, its aesthetic quality. That's simply what is on this slide. Okay, I click through it quickly and want to get to further open questions or observations. What is really exciting about proprioceptive art is that it's transcending the subject-object divide in the following sense. There were, within the Fluxus movement or in some other participatory arts, the audience was asked to do something, to press a button or switch a lever or be there somehow with their bodies. But in some cases or many cases, the audience's bodies were then integrated into the artwork, fair enough. Maybe even the actions of the audience within the surroundings were taken to be part of the artwork, but as material for the artwork. But proprioceptions weren't in focus. What is crucial about proprioceptive artwork on top of performative and interactive art is that a piece of matter, a material thing, becomes a very special material thing, becomes part of the artwork, namely your body. And to that material thing, which becomes part of the artwork, you have a very first-person authoritative perspective. You are the only person that can proprioceive that piece of matter, that material part of the artwork. I can't proprioceive your body. I can see your body. I could touch your body in principle, but I couldn't proprioceive your body. That is a thing that you only can do. So we have a very peculiar sense of privateness here, which is not the privateness of sensations. Of course, I have my own visual sensation. You have your own visual sensation. I have my own proprioceptive sensation. You have your own. In that, sensations, inner phenomenology is always private. The special privacy about proprioceptive art is that there is a material thing, your body, to which only you have a proprioceptive relation, a proprioceptive, the possibility to proprioceive it. That is something you only have. And by that, the subject-object divide is in a sense even more transcended than in pure participatory art. In participatory art, your body might become a material bit of the artwork. In that sense, okay, your body is also part of that. But here, that special subjective feeling of your body, of that piece of the artwork is very special. So that's on this slide. Again, in written form, I should have clicked through. And in this is the peculiar privacy here, which I have already. I've talked you through this. I've talked you through this already. Now here's a problem I have. Maybe you can help me with that. The problem of emotions. Any kind of artwork, you might say, and be right with it, author intentionally even and essentially provokes emotions, or at least many kind of artworks do. So they provoke emotions: joy, pleasure, disgust, fear, if you look at them. And emotions are or cause bodily reactions, depending on your theory of emotions, never mind. So emotions are or cause bodily reactions, and thereby proprioceptions or interoceptions of these bodily reactions. If you feel disgust, then you have a proprioception. So if the emotion of disgust or fear is what a visual artwork evokes, then by that, if that's essential for the artist, that emotion, then it's a proprioceptive artwork not by default, but if it's an essential part. And emotions are very often essential parts of the reception of an artwork. If that's the case, almost everything would be a proprioceptive artwork, to some degree at least. And I find theories that tell me that everything is of that kind a bit useless. I mean, we have looked at conceptual space a lot and distinguished senses and categorized artworks via the senses, etc. So some work has been done, but it would be somehow unfortunate if that was a result, that every artwork is indirectly a proprioceptive artwork, just because every artwork causes emotions. Emotions are bodily states. You perceive these bodily states internally, so it's proprioceptive. Here's the problem. Any kind of artwork might intentionally, essentially, indirectly, to some degree, involve bodily sensations. So everything would be indirect prop art, at least. So slippery slope here. Now, how can we avoid that? And ad hoc solution: exclude indirect proprioceptions after all. Just say, look, I want to restrict the term prop art only for artworks for which it is essential that you directly proprioceive and not mediate it via vision and emotions and then to the... That would be a possibility. I don't know whether it's good. Or you simply concede, okay, fair enough. Every or almost every artwork is indirectly a proprioceptive artwork. Fair enough. As long as we can still, within the realm of direct perceptions, say that only very few or only some are direct prop art and most are not direct prop art, but almost every is indirectly prop art. That would be a solution to that problem as well. Okay, I skip primacy of sight and vision. I skip demarcation. Oh yeah, this is the last slide. I said that in saying that something is a proprioceptive artwork, I have just described it, categorized it. No normative meaning involved at all. No evaluation involved at all. but you might justifiably ask, but give us also some clue what makes a proprioceptive artwork a good artwork rather than a bad one. I give you an example of what could be bad, what would be bad proprioceptive art. If it's just there to pull the crowd into the museum, because suddenly the museum is kind of a fairground attraction with roller coasters and slides and nets, and people can jump around, and okay, that's just a crowd puller, and to sell museum tickets in countries where museums sell their tickets. If that's the case, and that's all about the artworks, they would be artworks, they would be very shallow artworks. Okay, if that was everything. I think proprioceptions, because of their special privacy and their special and transcending object-subject divide, etc., they have the potential to shake our self-image or to make us focus on this kind of self-awareness of the subject-object divide in general. They could make us aware of our physical role in society. Some artworks play with gender roles, for example, and you can even proprioceive what it would mean to change gender roles. There are artificial virtual reality artworks where you can do funny things with avatars, which switch your body image. So I would think that those proprioceptive artworks, which make, so to speak, our self-body image, or which make proprioceptions their subject matter, so to speak, that there lies a great potential for great proprioceptive art. Or, as in Saraceno, for example, the net, if you take this to a metaphorical narrative level, if you interpreting a visual artwork and seeing clues like, okay, this dog means being lacking the English word now. Bruno, treu, faithful. This small dog stands for faithfulness in this. Now, the net stands for, okay, it's obvious, for being interrelated to other people. It makes us being aware, if we go there with a group into the net, we are all dependent on each other. You might take such metaphors on board and thereby make the whole thing worthy, a good piece of art. Okay, yeah, that's it. These are the sources of the pictures, and that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. It was really great. I don't know if it has something to say here, or maybe Markus Silva has something to say. And yep, okay.
Okay, thank you, Markus. Very, very interesting work, fascinating. I will start because I'm sure Bruno, Thiago, and many people will have many questions. So I will abuse a little bit of my role as the moderator or something as the president here. I have one question is more epistemological, and the other one is more ontological in a sense. And then I just want to hear you a little bit more, and then you go. Bruno and Thiago can ask themselves other questions and show some problems in the chat. And I've seen a good question here in the chat as well. So the first one is about the vocabulary you use, Markus. Sometimes for introducing the notion of proprioception, you use the notion the notion of perception, or to perceive something from inside. You use that as not Aristotelian senses. You kind of perceive gravitation, you use it as well. You perceive the position of your body, but on other at other moments of your talk, you use the vocabulary of. Sorry, I'm kind of trying to organize here all the windows that I opened up just to see you guys. You use the vocabulary, another vocabulary, which is you know things. Yeah? You know the position of your body. You know from inside. You know the gravitation from inside, and you try to by this kind of knowledge you try to coordinate body movements as well. So from this epistemological point of view, that is something that I was wondering is why you didn't use the very usual distinction that people do in epistemology, which is this distinction between know-how and know-that clauses. Why? Because you can, by emphasizing know-how, you can have many things that you want and avoid this more representationalist vocabulary as to see something from inside, but then you can what is that to see something from inside? You use some kind of true representation of something, you need a true representation, but what could be a false representation, false inner or internal representation? This is kind of awkward. Maybe if you introduce some notion of know-how, which is totally compatible of what you're saying about this embodied knowledge, yeah? A kind of competence, a kind of ability, this kind of problem or challenge could be put aside in a sense, yeah. And from the ontological, I would like to hear you more about this and how it could work, work as well. And the second question on the ontology, I think it's more properly meant by it's a problem that you already recognize this problem. You acknowledge that at the end of your, but I think it's the problem is larger. I think the problem is kind of big for you. It's the problem about the boundaries, yeah, the limits, or the kind of demarcation thing. Because if we take this definition you gave us, this condition A that you gave us, I think the risk that you have there is to trivialize. The risk of trivialization of the proper the kind of concept that you are using of proper art, in a sense. Why? Maybe you can introduce some distinction between this sufficient condition, necessary condition, because if it is a sufficient condition, this all artwork appeals direct or indirectly to some bodily sense, I think there's no way that you can avoid that all artwork appeals direct or indirect to some bodily sense, even the abstract ones. You may recall the very meaning of aesthetics that the Greek used, yeah, that totally connect to sensation and this kind of thing. But maybe, I mean, if it's sufficient condition, you are in trouble. Yeah? It's totally in trouble, because I think it trivializes any kind of artwork appeals for that, and maybe all things, in a sense, directly or indirectly, might appeal for bodily sensations as well. So I was thinking if it should not be sufficient, but maybe necessary condition, but maybe you need some other things to make this distinction from amusement park should not be a proprioceptive artwork in a sense. Yeah. And then I was thinking about the concept of intentionality. Maybe I don't know if it is used, even when you say that it appeals directly, it seems to me that maybe you're introducing some notion of, I don't know, I'm just thinking loud here, of intentionality. I want to hear you about that. Yeah. And the third thing is more about demarcation as well. I think for this traditional art or artwork, this distinction, a classical distinction between artist and a spectator is very central in a sense. Yeah? The kind of artist, musician, or visual art, and the spectator, the guy or the who is there to enjoy the artwork, Mona Lisa and music, and something like that. But then when you introduce this notion of proprioception, I think there is kind of blurred, yeah, because you lose this totally. Maybe artist is a kind of a spectator, and the spectator is a kind of artist as well. This is interesting from the point of view of the philosophy of art. But maybe from the point of view of this demarcation thing, you have another problem, because everything can be a proper art in a sense. Everybody can be an artist in a sense, or everybody can be a spectator of proper artists in a sense. It's interesting, but difficult, that's from a conceptual point of view. But thank you, Markus. I'd like to hear your.
Well, many thanks. This is extremely helpful for me. Starting with knowing how, knowing that. That's great to take that on board. Because of the many things you said already about knowing how, knowing that, and also because proprioceptions indeed most of the time come unnoticed. They are not there as we are not. There's no propositional attitude towards them, so to speak. I have to be really explicitly asked, tell me where your legs are without looking at them, and then you become aware of this proprioception. So it's really extremely close, or maybe it is, in our day-to-day life. Proprioception is really more of a knowing that, rather than it's more an ability, or it enables us at least to do things, rather than being aware of something as in knowing that. It's not this kind of propositional attitude. So it's I'll simply will think about that further, but definitely take it on board. This is many thanks, super helpful. By the way, there are cases also where, I mean, there are people blind people that can't see. There are very rare cases of people that lose their proprioception. There are certain illnesses or brain injuries where people have lost that the proprioception. They don't know from the inside where their legs, arms, etc. are. And these people had to learn again how, for example, to grab a glass and lift it, because they didn't know where their arm is, where their fingers are. So they had to do that visually only, and this is extremely difficult to do that by just vision. So it's a sense that is totally unnoticed to us as long as we have it. As long as we lose it, we lose all these abilities and skills, as in knowing how. So many thanks for that distinction. Now, demarcation: sufficient versus necessary conditions. I mean, for one thing, so yeah, trouble. I recognize that straight away. Let me try to defend it at least. Amusement parks or yoga exercises, etc. As long as they don't happen. Now I think of my clause B. It has to be recognized as an artwork already. Only then I ask whether it's a proprioceptive artwork, or in other words, for the necessary conditions belongs also that thing or performance or whatever has been recognized as a work of art. And only together A and B are meant to be sufficient as the definition or explication stands now. So I get amusement parks out, or yoga exercises are not per se immediately proprioceptive art via this definition. If you start practicing yoga in a museum and a curator or an artist tells you, look, this is part of my artwork by institutionalism, then you have fulfilled that necessary condition, and then it would be together with the proprioceptive perceptions, an artwork. But your question is, of course, deeper. Let us agree on clause B. We have these things in a museum, so they do qualify as work of art. And now it might still be trivializing that just everything in the museum is proprioceptive via, for example, the emotions, or because we are embodied creatures, we will have some kind of proprioceptions going with it. So I have indeed to be careful. Now, just in order not to spend more time on this issue, a very elegant way to at least postpone the punch of your very helpful critique is to say, okay, let me think further, and unless I have done my work, I will in future only phrase it in terms of necessary conditions and postpone the sufficiency for a while. So let me do that for now. But I recognize your point. So moving to your third question, or I put it down as a third question, intentionality. Maybe you have to repeat the question there. Of course, it is that I very quickly say it's author intentionalism. It depends on what the artist wants us to do. That's of course controversial to do that. I just thought that the alternative, if whether an artwork is visual or auditory or proprioceptive, is only for the receivers, only for the spectators, so to speak, then no categorization works because it's too individual. So my only, so to speak, the only grasp I can get onto things is in talking author intentionalism. That's just a helping hand, so to speak. That's maybe not entirely satisfying. I acknowledge that. Now, another thing that is blurred, as you say, is artist versus spectator or performer. That I don't mind that much. I agree there it might be blurred, but that would be fine. So now take again the net or the slides. Here we clearly have an artist who conceived of that artwork and maybe a team that built then one material part of the artwork. And the artist also advises us to slide down, so to be with our body part of the artwork. And now you may phrase it as I become, as a spectator, also a performer within this artwork, or my body becomes a material part of the artwork. But what is important here for me is just that there's one material part of the artwork or the performance to which I have a proprioceptive relation, and that proprioception that is going on is important for the appreciation of that work. That would be fine. By the way, here's that's clear to everyone. Here's a form of art for which this is always, or at least often the case, namely dance. I had Sasha Waltz as a choreographer, but dance, if you yourself are a dancer, you are always or often if you so wish, the artist. If you improvise yourself your dance, you might just be the performer. If you do your movements on the advice of a choreographer, then you are just the performer of the artwork an artist has created. Sometimes you are just a spectator, just sitting there and watching the dancers on stage. So I agree. There would be, you can say a lot about artist versus performer versus spectator, but that's fine as long as the performance for it's essential that I proprioceptive something. So I'm least worried about that, because I think I can integrate that into the the theory in that I just say, and look, here are 3 categories about which you can talk and what's happening with that kind of proprioceptive artwork, whether you're the artist, the spectator, or the performer. Now, I hope I have addressed at least all your questions, which I, as I said, find extremely helpful for me. Thanks.
Yes, I think we have here a question in the chat. I don't know if Beatriz has summed up this. Yep. Saraceno's net should not count as exteroceptive art, given that the relations with the context are what generates the vertigo, heart speeding, etc.
Okay, so that would be I mean, the word here is exteroceptive, and I think I agree with what Leonardo you say. I would classify that really as a proprioceptive artwork, and so the visual bits, if you just see it exteroceptively, are just not enough. You haven't seen they haven't perceived the essential part. So it's not something which we could call exteroceptive art in any good sense. But of course, part of the there's also a very important bit in your question, namely the shakiness of the net. That introduces directly your bodily perception. The vestibular system fires, so to speak, your muscle tension, equilibrium, etc. But that it induces vertigo, that is an indirect proprioceptive part, because that is mediated by vision, looking 25 meters down. So I'm happy to say that artworks, proprioceptive artworks, are multidimensional, so to speak. Some bits are indirectly proprioceived, others are directly proprioceived, and that was highlighted in your question as well. Vertigo is exteroceptive. Other things might be purely interoceptive. So thanks, for this question as well.
Maybe we could. He has actually, Markus, some other questions, but maybe we could ask Tiago if he has some question. If not, we go to Leonardo's next question, and if there is enough time, I have myself a question. So, Tiago, do you have a question there?
No, you can do it. Your question.
Okay, so Beatriz, can you please put the thanks. So, pragmatist theory of art, such as Dewey's, which sees art as experience better suited to deal with prop art?
Great question. And the short answer is yes. I have Dewey. Here's a confession. I know about art as experience. I have it sitting on my desk in my university office, and I feel the same, that as an art theory, this fits greatly to the idea of proprioceptive art, because these are kinds of experience which, because they concern our inner body, so to speak, they are such striking, or they can at least afford striking experiences. And so I need to get further into Dewey's theory, and I see it. I mean, your question implicates that you think that way too, and me too. Let me confirm that. So thanks. Great. Yeah.
Okay, so I then just question myself, and then I think we are running out of time. So I'll just ask myself. So when you were talking about essentiality, you gave me the impression that the intended content from the artist and also the first person experience are necessary conditions to proprioceptive art. But then I have a problem with this actually, because the intended content is actually a third person's experience. So if you put the intended content as a necessary condition, you would have to have a real and a really strong causation there, and it'd be a little bit difficult to sustain that, I think so.
So let me rephrase your point. Let us look at visual art as a contrast, as a sample class. When Leonardo da Vinci painted Mona Lisa, he intended us to have certain visual experiences. And of course, there are blind people wouldn't be able to see it at all, visually impaired people, colorblind people, etc. So also there, of course, what Da Vinci intended is not totally in his control, whether that works or not. For proprioceptive artworks, I would think that's basically the same, because, and again, only more or less, only on average, etc., we share bodies, so we can be not at all certain, but there's a high chance that at least many people in the audience will have the same kind of proprioceptions. So despite this strange privacy of these proprioceptions, which goes beyond the privacy of all our inner sensations, namely that it's my body, I only properceive and not yours. Despite that, which is really special about proprioception, despite that, we would still think, because of being so similar in bodies, by and large, of course, yeah, depends on how fine-grained you look at our bodies, but by and large, our bodies are so similar that we have the same case as in vision. It's a plus minus similarity there. So a lot of what is intended will also be caused, so to speak. I think most of it, sufficiently enough.
Yeah. So I think we ran out of time. I thank you very much, Markus. I will then pass the word to Tiago. He will close the session. And I thank you again all for you, Markus Silva, and also for the SBFR and the GAP. So thank you.
Many thanks. It was a pleasure. Thanks for the questions. I've made on my iPad a lot of notes. Thank you.
Tiago, are you going to